but I have two opinions on tattoos. One, as a mother of two teenagers, well, actually, let me be corrected, two young adults. One of them is not teenager anymore. And two, as a dermatologist. For me, tattoo is a firm no-no. I do not see value of people altering their body while taking a potential health risk. We need as a society to learn to live in our own skin. Skin is the largest organ of our body, and skin has special function. Our skin is a barrier for our body to protect us from anything from outside world. And I think that whole notion of, oh, I want this bird on my shoulder, or I want this rose on my whichever part of my body. I don't know why there is such a drive of that there is a need to, for people to actually alter their most important organ with the ink.
Hello and welcome to 3D Media Live Podcast. I'm your host Dimitri, and I have a very exciting guest to introduce, Dr. Natalia Borinshteyn. She is an accomplished dermatologist that has an incredible background, incredible career to share with us, and we have a very interesting thing to announce as well to our audience. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome you, Natalia, Dr. Borinshteyn. Thank you for joining the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Dmitry, for inviting me. It's truly an honor. And you can call me Natalia. No worries about that. It's a
Thank you,
pleasure to.
Natalia. So you're president of Life Science Excellent, Lex for short, and you're offering services to healthcare industry, to pharmacy companies, to all sorts of medical companies for novel treatment options. You help them develop strategies on how to launch new products, help them develop the new products, basically from A to Z. And there's a lot of actually correlation between what we do and what you do. You're basically the expert for the medical world, from implementation to strategy to advertising, kind of what we do for the rest of the business world. And I think when we started talking, it was a natural uh, fit to collaborate together, because we keep getting all these medical customers that come to us. Currently, we've been offering them solutions that are very uh, comfortable for us to offer, such as media production, content production, advertising. But we have no expertise when it comes to anything medical, and it seems like having you work with us and we work with you, having this partnership is very exciting, because what you bring to the table, what you have brought to the table to all of these medical and healthcare companies is absolutely incredible. First of all, just the things that I know about you, I'm going to say, and then I'd like you to tell me more about yourself as well. The things that I know, that you speak many languages. Is that true?
It is true. Many of you, yes.
How many languages do you speak, Natalia?
Well, I speak well Russian, somewhat well English, and I do speak Italian, French, and German.
Wow, wow. And you had experience working basically in Europe, in North America, working with some of the largest companies out there, developing incredible novel medical treatments. And also, even your educational background is quite fascinating. You've graduated in medical school in Moscow, and you became a dermatologist, working practice as a dermatologist until you moved to Europe. I believe you worked a little bit in Europe and the United States. So please actually tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Dmitry. I'm truly humbled to be here today. And I just wanted to start from saying that, we're going to discuss a lot of interesting topics. And I do share my own opinion, my own experience. I'm not in a position to give medical advice today, but I will do my best to address some of the hot topics which might be on your mind and might be of interest from the business perspective as well as from personal perspective. And I can only talk about publicly available data. So, as Dmitry said kindly, I am a dermatologist. I have a PhD in allergy and immunology. And who would have thought that in early 90s, when I chose the field to study, I had specific interest in atopic dermatitis, that immunology is going to take such a leap. Everything we know today is innovation. Immunology have brought, you probably know, a lot of new treatments for devastating diseases, including cancer, with new immuno-oncology treatment options. It has been a really blooming and exciting field. And as Dmitry said, I did spend some time working in clinical practice, truly enjoyed treating children with atopic dermatitis and other skin conditions. And also, somehow life brought me into pharma industry, and I have spent 18 years working on launching and bringing to the market 6 different innovative products for Sanofi. And I spent a little over a year at AbbVie working on a product which many of you have heard about, the number one product in the whole pharmaceutical world, Humira. And I helped AbbVie to launch their first treatment, curative treatment for the hepatitis C, which was truly innovative treatment as well.
Wow.
And nowadays, since 2015, I actually founded Life Science Excellence with the goal and the mission to bring expertise and solutions to problems which pharmaceutical and all life science industry are facing, whether it's device company or healthcare systems, educational service providers, to how to communicate best complex medical data to ensure that the right patient sees the right treatment at the right time. And a lot of people involved in that continuum. And to make it all happen, obviously, work like you do, Dmitry, is very important, because communication and promotion is very, very important. But it's also important to do it understanding the medicine really deeply. And that's what I bring to the table.
Well, I think I agree with you 100%. A picture is worth 1,000 words. I always say that. And if you present the right message, there's less miscommunication. And I think this industry, healthcare industry in general, has a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misinformation revolving around it. But before we delve into that, and I promise it's going to be very exciting, some of the topics we're going to cover, I want to actually learn a little bit more about your background, how you became a dermatologist, how you chose this profession, because I know there's a lot of different doctors out there and a lot of different motivations behind being a doctor. What inspired you to pursue this career?
This is a great question. And, I have to tell you, I knew that I'm going to be a doctor when I was about 10 years old. I somehow had that desire to make a difference in people's lives. We lost my mom's aunt to cancer at right early age, and my grandfather was very close with her. And I remember, going through that. I knew her personally, but just thinking that how devastating it is for this relatively young woman to pass away to breast cancer, I felt, what, I want to do something about this. I want to grow up, become a doctor, and bring new treatments to people. Little did I know how life is going to take turns and, what obstacle it puts on our way. But I'm a big believer that if you really have a goal and if you really want to do something, sky is the limit. You can accomplish anything. And my journey into medicine wasn't necessarily easy. I was born and raised in the country which doesn't exist anymore, called
Me
Soviet
too.
Union. Some of the
Yeah,
younger listeners probably don't even know.
yeah.
But now, the part where I was born and grew up was Russia. And as you can probably imagine, Russia was a pretty anti-Semitic country, was, and one would debate how much it is right now. I'm not going to go into political discussion right now. But for a young Jewish girl, it wasn't easy to get into medical school. And nobody cared that I was valedictorian in my high school and I had the perfect scores on every possible test. There were obstacles coming out of nowhere. But I had to take 2 gap years. I didn't give up. And I will tell to any person who inspired to pursue medicine for career, if that's really your calling, no matter what it is, find a way to make it work, and it will work. And I do believe in goodness in people. I do believe in help which we get from above. Somehow my journey did bring me to medical school, and I was very fortunate. I actually wanted to become a surgeon, just like many young, medical students do. And I worked in the surgery department for 4 years as a student volunteer, assisted on 100 surgeries, and was absolutely determined that I'm going to be a surgeon. And surgeons love me because I have small hands. I'm a relatively petite woman, so I was kind of destined to do vascular surgery. up to a point when you're on call once a week, 24 hours, it really gets to you. And I realize all of a sudden I'm in my early 20s and I am exhausted. Like I really couldn't even think about how can I do that for life and have a family, do something that I enjoy to do while being a good surgeon. And as I was thinking through that, coming close to my completion of my medical training, I bumped into my dermatology professor. And he said, what's going on, Natalia? You look like not as upbeat as you usually are. What's bothering you? And I'm like, well, I had this whole plan and I know where I was going for residency and what I wanted to do professionally. And now I have afterthoughts. Am I really going to be a surgeon? Do I really want to do that? And he told me, look no further. Dermatology is a perfect profession. And I said, why would you say that? It's disgusting. And he's like, well, first of all, come work with me for a week. You will definitely not see what you consider disgusting now. And second of all, knowing you, you're a kind of person who like to see results of your work. And in my patients, I give them the right treatment. They come back 2 weeks later, sometimes 4 weeks later, and I see the result of my work. You will really enjoy it. And I have to tell you, Professor Galovanov, wherever you are in the world right now, I am thankful to you every single day. I decided to change my path, which I thought was destined to me, and pursue dermatology. It's a very competitive residency, not easy to get into, but I was a very strong student and was very fortunate to be offered a position in pediatric residency program for dermatology and learned a lot from most amazing people. I was very privileged to have an opportunity to study in Europe as well and got very broad perspective of what dermatologists can offer to patients. And again, as I said, over the last 20, 30 years, innovation have been just blooming and so many new treatment options have been introduced, which were not available back in the day when I was
Yeah,
in
I
practice.
think you shared a story with me how what was 20 years ago versus today is drastically different, right? And so many lives are saved now, which is incredible.
Right, right. Yes, I think, like I mentioned to you, that I think sometimes things happen for a reason, and our life path and career paths bring us certain places. And I had this one remarkable experience when I was actually a dermatology resident in the building where our department was based. On another side, we had pediatric hemato-oncology, so children with leukemia and other um, blood cancers were admitted to that department, treated there. Some of them came back for post-treatment follow-up. And I remember we had this holiday party one of the years I was there, and chief of our department invited our neighbors to the party, and all those oncologists came over and we had a really nice time. We were sitting and talking, and the chief of their department was sitting very, very quietly, and everybody noticed that. And one of the colleagues of mine asked her, why are you so quiet? And she said, I was thinking about holiday party we hosted for our patients. We have 20 patients admitted to our department right now, and they were dancing around the Christmas tree. And I noticed to myself that from these 20 kids, I'm pretty confident 19 of them will survive to the next year. Majority of them will grow into full grown up adults, have their own families, have their own children, and live happy life. It's not what I experienced 20 years ago when I started my career. At the time, barely one child at the Christmas party,
Wow.
next Christmas party. And I have to tell you, it had such an impact on me. I was like looking at this woman, first of all, as a hero for what she was doing. She was treating very difficult children with very severe conditions. But for what was accomplished with the over 20 years of time with those innovations, and I'm talking 1994, from 1995, from 1995 to current day, 2024, just think about how many new treatment options were brought to market, how many new treatments were discovered, whether it's surgical treatments or medical treatments or biologic treatments. The number of lives saved is just absolutely incredible. And it all comes obviously through hard work and passion of a lot of people everywhere, from a doctor, nurse, any person working in a hospital, people in pharma industry, people in device industry. A lot of people contribute. People in communications contribute to that success because we are all part of the global healthcare and innovators who contribute their bit to make one person's life better, to save one life, to give one person a chance, one day at a time, one person at a time. But that person is somebody's child, somebody's son, somebody's father, somebody's mother or grandmother, and every life is extremely valuable. That's what drives me every day, to be honest, with what I do and what I did for over 20 years now. And I keep coming back to the story over and over again when people question, why healthcare costs so much, or why is this and why is that, and why do we do this way, why do we do that? Everything happens for a reason, and we are doing the best we can to help each person at a time.
Let me actually backtrack for a moment. I was just thinking while you were talking about, dermatology in general. I don't think people realize how important dermatology is. What is the number one biggest organ that a human body has? It's skin, right?
Right.
It's everybody on Earth is constantly impacted by some kind of a skin condition or anything within dermatology field. There's so many topics that we can unpack, and like you mentioned earlier, we're not giving any medical advice, and I think we will save that portion for a later part of the show. But I just wanted to express that idea, whether it's hair loss, whether it's staying youthful, uh, God forbid cancers, um, so many things that are within dermatology. And I just also want to say, first of all, and this is people that know me, that they know when I give compliments to others, they're meaningful compliments. I don't just give them out freely. But you're one of the smartest people I know, period. One of the smartest people I know. And I'm personally thankful that you actually evolved your career to where you are now, helping develop new treatment options, promoting them. You will actually make a much greater impact on people's lives than just being a local dermatologist, even though probably financially maybe it might have been a better option to be a doctor, because I know a lot of doctors make a ton of money locally, but I think the impact that you will have on the world is far, far greater. Actually, tell me a little bit about those treatments that you've helped develop over the course of your career.
Oh, thank you, Dmitry. It's very kind of you to say. Again, as I said, I'm truly humbled, but I'll take your compliment and obviously very much appreciate it. So I was very fortunate to work over the years in different therapeutic fields, not only dermatology, actually, as pharma is very interesting industry. And one of the things I learned early on, that you can apply your knowledge as long as you're medically trained to different aspects and learn from one therapeutic area to another. So to give you a few examples, I was involved very closely to bringing to the market products like Allegra. Many people know Allegra from treating allergies. And it used to be back in the day prescription medication. Now it's over the counter medication, given the years of experience and safety data which was accumulated with use of Allegra. Another product I worked on and I feel very proud of is Lantus. It's a long acting insulin, which is helping millions of patients. I believe we crossed 15 million patient number a while ago, and it's a product which also brings quality of life, opportunity for healthier life for people with type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes. I also was involved in the development of the product for the facial rejuvenation, a number of them. Some of them I can tell you the names, some I cannot because they were covered under confidentiality. But I did work on development of the product called Sculptra, which is injectable polylactic acid. And it was actually originally developed and approved for the treatment of the lipoatrophy associated with the treatments for AIDS, for HIV. And it was used as a filler because the patients who received HIV treatment have developed very specific shape lipoatrophy, and the company wanted to bring them a solution which will make them look just like everybody else around them. And seeing the effect of this product on those patients, company decided to invest into development of the product for aesthetic indications. And it actually has been used, I believe, since 2009, probably maybe 2008 it was approved. I can't remember exactly now, but it is one of the products in the armamentarium of options for dermatologists to give people to maintain their youth. As I also mentioned, I did work on the launch of Vikira Pack. It's a product for hepatitis C curative curative solution, so it cures hepatitis C. I did not develop it, but I did work with the team who brought it to the market for AbbVie, and it was a remarkable milestone for patients who has been suffering from a disease which was called a silent killer, because hepatitis C in earlier stages of development is sometimes unnoticeable, and people find out they have it just from a simple blood test. But ultimately, this disease leads to hepatocellular carcinoma. It's a cancer of the liver. So having a treatment option which actually cures this disease was really inspiring for many suffering from this condition. And this product and many newer products have been developed since, are used very successfully now in this patient population. So these are just few examples.
Let me actually ask you something. You probably have a very unique perspective being immersed in this world. I think it's a topic that bothers many people, including myself. Why are drugs or medications so expensive, especially the new ones?
Yeah, it's a very hot topic, and it's a question which a lot of people ask. So I think there are a few things to consider when a patient or a person looks at the either bill they receive for their treatment, or in general about the cost of medication they're feeling. They have to remember what builds up that cost, and that cost is not built by the greed of pharmaceutical company. A lot of elements go into that. First of all, certain medicines, especially the novel one, Mitri, you're asking about, they're very expensive to produce. It's not the same cost of production for something like aspirin, which is a small molecule with very established, very straightforward production process, versus producing a biologic or producing an immunotherapy involving certain cells. Those technologies are very difficult to produce, so the cost of production is expensive. In order to bring a novel treatment to the market, any manufacturer, potential, let's say pharmaceutical company or biopharmaceutical company, they have to follow certain development process. And it usually starts from a large number of molecules which are being discovered early on, tested in cell cultures, tested in different models, and from there identify their potential pharmacological activity. Once we know what this product could do and which disease it could treat, it has to go through a very regimented, formalized process in order to obtain FDA approval. And that
Because
process,
we all want safe drugs. We don't want something that's going to
we
cause
want,
tremendous side effects.
well, we want safe drugs. We want drugs which actually work. Sometimes you
Right.
can develop a very safe drug, but the drug doesn't do anything. You don't want to approve and spend money on a drug which is not going to give substantial improvement in a condition which it's intended to treat. And you want drug which is different from what's currently available, and hopefully than what's currently available. And you want to understand what type of patient will actually benefit from this drug. So to address all of those questions, we have to conduct a number of different clinical trials, which each of them take time, each of them are expensive, and this process usually takes about 12, on average 12 to 14 years, depending on therapeutic,
Wow.
and again cost a lot of money.
So in
So
other words, like the R&D cost can be upwards of like $4, 5, 6 billion. And a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of rhetoric. They say, why is this pill that probably costs less than a penny to produce is being sold for $5, 10? Which is, it seems ridiculous. It seems like, but to amortize that R&D cost, you have to sell a billion pills at $1 before you even break even. And obviously, any business enterprise has to make money. So
right, and this is one aspect of that, Dmitry. You're absolutely right, but you also have to remember that the actual cost of medicine is not only what it costs to produce. Like if you look at the statistics, I believe where did I saw that? Oh, University of Southern California actually published a white paper about the cost and money flow in the distribution system and pharmaceutical industry. And for any given $100 spent on a medical treatment, on, let's say, on a drug, right? What goes to the manufacturer is about 41%.
oh wow, where does
Just
the other money go?
just 41%. 17% compensate actual production cost. And this, again, these are averages. This study is available, somebody if interested can look it up. It's a white paper by University of Southern California. So from $100, about 17% goes to compensate actual direct production costs. The 41% accrues to the manufacturer, and only 15% of that is actually net profit. So the
Wow.
money go into reinvesting into the R&D and into certain profit to the shareholders for the publicly traded companies. The remaining 41% accrues for intermediaries, distribution system. We're talking the wholesalers, the
You
pharmacists.
mean 59%? The remaining 59%? You said
Wait,
41% goes to the pharmaceutical and
17,
59 goes out.
no, wait. 17 is a cost of production.
Cost of goods sold.
Yes, 41 goes to manufacturer, and another
Okay.
42 goes to the intermediaries.
Got it. Okay.
And
That makes sense.
are your pharmacies, your pharmacy benefits managers, the insurers, the wholesalers. So this, nobody thinks about it. Nobody takes it into perspective. Everybody blames large pharma, but it's not the large pharma who benefits from the money spent.
Yeah, it's
So
a bigger picture you have to see.
it's a bigger picture you have to think. Another, the whole other story is, the healthcare system at large. If you look at the money spent in healthcare, if you think about it, CDC publishes the numbers for 2019. Hospital spending is about 37%. It's a
Wow.
larger spend in the whole healthcare expenditures. Physicians and all clinical services are only accounted for 24% of the total healthcare cost. The prescription drugs, guess it, it's only 11% of the total cost of the healthcare. The nursing care facilities and retirement communities represent about 5%, and then dental services and home health services, another 4 and 3%. So the largest, part of the pie of expenses, it's really the hospital systems and, the collateral expenses. Prescription drugs represent just 11% of that cost.
Why hospitals are so expensive?
It's an interesting question as well. Have you been to the hospital lately? I'm sure
I
you have.
have.
One of
Yeah.
hopefully for a good reason of welcoming a new child to the world, but
Yes.
fortunately we all have reality of life. I don't think any country in the world have such a luxury hospitals like America. Hospitals became in America as a place of business. There is the CEO of the hospital. There is the whole marketing of the hospitals. A lot of money spent on that. All these beautiful waiting areas, single patient rooms, and all of that costs money. The
Right.
doctors, as again, we looked at statistics, the expense for actually paying a salary for a doctor or for a nurse, which are absolutely essential medical providers in the healthcare system, is relatively small to the actual cost of the hospital. And I think that's one of the problems. People have expectations that they're going to come into a single room, going to have a flat screen TV, they're going to receive, all possible things. It costs money. And I'm absolutely not an advocate for socialized medicine, absolutely not. But I have to say, in order for doctors to bring health to the patients and help them get through whatever condition brought them to the hospital, they absolutely do need the right equipment. They do need treatment options. They do need continuous training, and they do need personnel to support them. But not necessarily every patient has to be in a separate room. I have worked in different hospitals in Europe. Rarely you would see single rooms in hospital in UK, but it doesn't mean that the quality of the healthcare is inferior to what's being provided in America today. So it's a very philosophical question. If we want to go to medical treatment and be treated in a luxury environment, the cost is going to be this high. If we're going to look at the healthcare at the hospital as a place where people go for health, and the priority should be given for hiring the best doctors and providing the best equipment and the best treatment options, maybe a resource allocation could be slightly different.
You're opening a big can of worms. There's always this debate between socialized medicine and private medicine. And you have also a unique position amongst that because you have began your career in a communist country in socialized medicine. And I would imagine that you have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of actually both of those systems. You have been in Russia that was totally communist socialist system. You have been in Europe that has a hybrid of both socialist and private, and then in America where it's mostly private at this point, although people are constantly advocating to socialize the medicine more. Um, what do you think is the perfect formula for that?
I think some kind of combination is probably the best. The best models I know, they are coming from Scandinavia and experience with the somewhat socialized healthcare, such as healthcare in Sweden or in Norway, work really well, where people do have access to high quality treatment options, to very well trained physicians. There is no extremely long wait or something, but people do get good health care without exuberant cost to them. I think that works
Let
really
me
well.
actually interrupt you for a moment. I apologize, but just to backtrack a little bit from layman like point of view, I just want to compare the three systems to see the basic advantages and basic disadvantages of the three systems, and then we'll try to talk to see in more detail what's the better system. But let's lay out the cards first. So we have something like Soviet Union or other countries that we have today where it's completely socialized medicine. I would probably Canada is one of those as well, right? Or they have some private as well. But let's just assume completely social.
They do have some private, but I think country wise, it's probably more socialized medicine.
Okay, and the major advantage of that is controlled cost. So we assume, right? The government controls what's right and wrong. It's not up to any one company. So hypothetically speaking, the evil portion that people claim can be cut out. The selfishness can be cut out. It could be truly an altruistic system. The disadvantage of that is there is no motivation to innovate, no motivation to perfect, to stand out. There's no competition. It becomes stagnant. It becomes what's the bare minimum to get through today, and then doctors are less motivated to to so there's the disconnect. It seems like when you have economies of scale in general, right? If you're trying to advocate a system that will have economies of scale, it should cut down costs. It should enable you to have less weight, cheaper medicine. In theory, it's the better option. But I think because our world is imperfect, it doesn't work that way. But on the flip side, when you have the private system like in the United States, you can have variety of options. You have multitude of options, and you can have the greatest the and latest innovations because capitalism will ultimately I think motivates people to innovate and come up with new things, new solutions. You can have hospitals that are luxurious, but obviously with that comes extra bloating in cost, and it may seem less altruistic. It becomes more driven based on financial success, so to speak. Am I getting the picture correctly?
I think you're trending right. There are a few things I probably would consider. I think on a big scheme of things, if we try to very simplify it, um, in a socialistic system, government controls the money. You pay taxes. Government takes from your income whatever amount of money, like in Soviet Union we didn't call it taxes per se, but when we received salary, government took part of our salary from whoever was paying it to us, and government decided how to spend this money. They wanted to spend money on military, on protecting our precious borders, and I'm being sarcastic right
And
now.
we have to assume that the government has our best interest in mind.
Of
Yeah.
course, they do. But back in the day in the Soviet Union, portion of your money went towards healthcare. And the government decided how much money to spend in a given area, in a given hospital, and fund everything what relates to medicine. So people don't pay anything out of pocket. Whether you go to the outpatient clinic or you go to the hospital, you need to receive a certain treatment. It's all put on responsibility of the doctor and of the system to provide the patient with the best treatment possible. Now, it is easy to do when those treatments are very cheap and very simple and very generic, and government has enough money. But in the current world, and what happens pretty much everywhere where socialized medicine is right now in place,
Implemented. Yeah.
implement probably again with an exception, as I said, of Scandinavia, where they do have a substantial pool of money. And that's why Scandinavia, in my mind, represents probably the best example. The resources there's a shortage of resources. There is a shortage of physicians, there is a shortage of healthcare providers, and therefore some people would complain that in countries like Canada, I never practiced medicine in Canada and I was never a patient in Canada, but from what I'm reading is patients do have to wait for an elective surgical procedure. If you are doing a procedure which is life-saving, I'm pretty sure they will accommodate it in a hospital as patient comes in. But if patient chooses to do something because it's good for them longer term, that's where they will probably be placed on a wait list. And some people are okay with that. Some people are not happy about that. We live in a world of instant gratification. So some people would say it's unacceptable for me to wait for a knee replacement for 6 months. I want this knee replaced now. For other people, it is reasonable. But the deeper question would be, and also controversial question, why does patient need a knee replacement? Is it because patient had trauma or had a sports injury or something terrible happen? Absolutely, they should be given a priority. But if this is because patient made poor health choices and is not eating well and has enormous amount of weight, which wore those knees up just because carrying that weight puts so much pressure on those knees, and I'm again just making an example, then the question is it really an emergency? Is it something which needs an immediate treatment, or the patient could wait? It's a philosophical question. There is never right and wrong to that. But
Well, I would imagine, yeah, if they're already in a condition where their knees are worn out, you want to give them the treatment. But whether they should be covered or they have to have a punitive, maybe some kind of a price to pay, I don't think the punition should be in the waiting period, but maybe they have to pay. Hey, you caused this to yourself. Why are you making other people pay to a problem that could have been easily avoided? But that's also kind of failure in the society at large, where where there's lack of education and preventative medicine, I think, in general.
right. I wanted to make a note that there is no punition in medicine. Everybody wants to do the best for their patient. Everybody wants to give them the right treatment this as soon as possible. But the reality is such, again, we were talking about socialized medicine, resources are limited, and one has to decide where and how those resources are going to be spent. Another absolutely philosophical question you bring up: if the person developed that condition because of poor choices before, you know, should there be certain commitment on the patient side to do better choices that after the treatment was performed, there is no, another possible rebound of the same condition? Or, probably knee surgery is a bad example for this. And I cannot right now think of a better example. Maybe it will come later in our conversation. But switching, just one thing I wanted to highlight though, there are excellent physicians in socialized medicine setting. They do truly care about their patients. And there is no that lack of competition which doesn't make them desire to do the best for their patients. But they simply do have limited resources. They have limited time, they have limited resources, they're overworked, they work long hours, they're trying to do the best they can. And there are a lot of excellent physicians in Canada who are doing the best every day they have. In a fully commercial medicine, in the market medicine, or whatever was the right word you used for um,
Private.
private medicine, thank you.
Yeah.
In private medicine setting, you have other issues. You have issues of the middleman. When a doctor is now the more and more there are consolidations of large systems in the United States, and those systems control what physicians do and how they spend their time. Their insurance on top of that, and insurance is, I think, it becoming more and more ridiculous. I think it is a controversial topic, but it is a reality of our life. The insurance decides over the doctor what patients should receive. How is this acceptable? People go to medical school, spend 4 years undergrad, 4 years in medical school, 4 years doing residency for special, important specialties and complex specialties. People do fellowship for several years after their residency, and they are best trained. And they are the people who evaluate a patient and make a decision. Patient needs treatment X. Well, once physician decides the patient needs treatment X, it goes to the insurance company. And somebody who has never seen these patients at the insurance company says, it's too expensive. We don't want to pay for this. How about you just give them this something instead? And then it triggers the process which is called prior authorization, which takes a lot of time and effort. And for some patients, delays the treatment which should have started a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And again, in some instances, in some conditions, that time is absolutely critical. The insurances, as we looked at that before with you, they take a substantial part of this healthcare expenditure
The insurance
pie.
is kind of like the government,
Well,
essentially.
they pretty much decide what a patient should receive. How is this right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I have to say, I cannot imagine, and I would love to. I would love to see the change. I think about it very often. I'm yet to come up with a solution as to how it is possible in America to address this elephant in the room of large insurance companies taking a big control and big part of the healthcare and impacting state of the healthcare as it is right now, which leads to increased costs and relatively to poor population health. We're actually one of the unique countries which have the highest, one of the highest expenditure on healthcare and relatively low population health.
So let's sum up what we've talked about so far. We're trying to understand how can we have an optimum healthcare system where you have controlled cost, uh, universal access, and quality healthcare. Those are kind of the three components that are very crucial and very difficult to combine together. And what goes into those? It's the government, the insurance companies, if it's not completely socialized, because otherwise the government is the insurance company. And if there is no insurance company, like direct medicine pay out of pocket cash customer, right? And you mentioned Scandinavia is the best example of what is right. So can you give me a real example of why you think that is the best, like some data behind it, or a personal example that you can that you can share with us?
You know, as of today, I can share with you an example of experience working in their healthcare system. But maybe we should parking lot the topic as to why and how they do that for a next conversation. But I can tell you, when I was working as a young physician in a hospital, I spent the months in Sweden and the months in Norway. While the hospitals were okay, they were clean, they were, well lit, they had all possible equipment, but it wasn't a resort like setting. They did have well trained physicians, they had resources to spend money on treating the patients. And I was not aware of excessively long wait time necessarily for patients to come see a doctor in a hospital. They did have a system where you have to go see your primary care first. And if needed, you will be referred to a specialist. If needed, you will be referred to a specialist in outsetting clinic. But if the condition is such that you need in hospital treatment, you will be referred into hospital. But the system worked pretty well. And obviously, this system worked for years, where the government and the pocket is relatively deep. We all know that financially Scandinavian countries are doing very well, and people expectations were very realistic. They're not, the patients going in the hospital do not expect a luxury setup. They expect healthcare. And I think in America, as of right now, this expectation is a little bit reset. I think unfortunately, people do expect luxury and people do rate their experience of in a hospital, not necessarily understanding the quality of medical care versus, the beautiful paintings on the walls and the nice furniture in the waiting room. And again, as I mentioned, TV and being in a single room versus being in a double room. So I think this kind of value um, assessment should come into the discussion. If you ask me, where is the solution? I think the solution is probably somewhere in the middle. I think you do need both. You do need to provide healthcare to underprivileged populations. You do need to make sure everybody has access to the healthcare. It's an essential right of every human being. If you're sick, you should be treated. And you should, if you can't afford it, somebody should help you to pay for that. But at the same time, it shouldn't be 100% only controlled by the government, nor it should be 100% only controlled by businesses like insurance companies or the hospital networks. There should be certain regulations and certain limitations on how much income the middleman can make. And I don't know if it is regulated that well as of right now, because insurances and the hospital systems are pretty rich entities. And they're the entities, you know, they're not the innovators, and they're not the ones who actually treat people. They're not the ones who are signing the charts. The doctor who is doing a surgery, taking responsibility on the human's life in the moment. These people are being controlled, to my extent, excessively, when every treatment decision which doctor makes is being overwritten by either the hospital system or the insurance company. And I think that's where, if we can find that middle ground and we can make it a combined and well-balanced system where doctor is still given primary authority to decide what's right for the patient, and being supported by the systems, it probably would be the best for everybody.
It's an interesting point that the hospitals today are like businesses that are delivering a service or similar to a hotel. And I kind of see why they have to do it in such a way, at least in America. We On the last episode, I had a guest from Yelp. She's head of partner sales, and we touched upon a topic: how important reviews are today. And Yelp was started primarily by the CEO of the company. He made Yelp to help find doctors. Like, he was trying to find a quality doctor, and he realized there's no like accountability, no review system, and that's how Yelp came about. And now Yelp is known for its reviews. So now imagine if a hospital doesn't have the amenities. People tend to, even if they do receive quality health care, they might focus on the fact that it wasn't comfortable to be in a hospital. And I think that's kind of pushing the system to behave in such a way where the focus on the amenities and comfort is almost as important as it is on the healthcare. Because if a person leaves you a 1-star review, not everybody sees why they love the review. They might just assume, oh, that's a bad doctor, not necessarily that they gave a bad treatment, because the comfort wasn't there. You know what I
Right.
mean? But that
I,
that's a very interesting subject that I think requires more time to unpack.
I agree, Dmitry, and I think the point is people need to have expectations. If that's what you value, then you shouldn't complain on the cost. And if
Right.
you value cost, you should be more accepting of a little bit simpler environment. I can tell you that when I had to choose a pediatrician for my children before they were born, I went to meet this one doctor who unfortunately passed away since, and she's not with us anymore. Was an amazing doctor. She had a very simple, very little practice, and her daughter took it over and still runs it very successfully, taking care of children from the day they were born up to 18 to 20 probably years old. The quality of her care and the attention she gave to every single child and every single family who brought their child to her was unparalleled. She was a very experienced practitioner. Yes, she had a small, simple practice with, small, simple chairs, two patient rooms, but I don't know who would have ever complained that, her office is not as luxurious. But I do also understand, and I do also see how, in some specialties in particular, speak about dermatology. I don't know how, recently you or our listeners have been to an aesthetic dermatologist office. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous.
Like
It's,
spas almost.
yeah, like I love to go, visit my colleagues. But again,
Contrast of the cost.
the expectation, if you
Yeah.
want to go to a dermatologist on Fifth Avenue with a view to the Central Park and, have a spa like setup, then you probably would be expected to spend more money on treatment like this. And I think people just need to align their expectations with the price tag, because there is place for both. There is a place for time and setting where one would consider spending more money, and there is a place where some people just simply cannot or do not want to spend extra money. And it's nice to have a choice, but this choice should not be impacting the quality of medical expertise. My point is that whether you go to luxury hospital, you go to simple hospital, you should receive high quality treatment from well-trained professionals, with the treatment options should be available in both, when the amenities should take a secondary value in this process.
Yeah, I think that that topic is very interesting, and hopefully we'll cover it in more detail another time. I want to move on to a different subject, kind of touch upon your expertise as a dermatologist a little bit, because I have all these questions built up, and I think a lot of listeners will benefit from them as well. Um, eh, for example, as a dermatologist, right? What would you say about uh people that want to do tattoos? Because I notice how it's becoming extremely popular today in society to do tattoos, and I know that sometimes people then regret the decision, and it's very difficult to remove them. Is that even covered by insurance or no?
It's a great question. Well, let me take a step back first. And you definitely ask a question from a person who is very passionate about it. And I'm going to be controversial, but because I know multiple of my colleagues would probably disagree with my opinion. But I have two opinions on tattoos. One, as a mother of two teenagers, well, actually, let me be corrected, two young adults. One of them is not teenager anymore. And two, as a dermatologist. For me, tattoo is a firm no-no. I do not see value of people altering their body while taking a potential health risk. And I think in general, philosophically speaking, we need as a society to learn to live in our own skin. You did mention you prepared really well, Dmitry. Skin is the largest organ of our body, and skin has special function. Our skin is a barrier for our body to protect us from anything from outside world, whether it is infection, whether it is temperature, whether it is simple barrier for dirt and for water and for anything else we encounter. Thermoregulation, it's an excretion system. Skin is playing the role. Skin is not for us to play with. And I think that whole notion of, oh, I want this bird on my shoulder, or I want this rose on my whichever part of my body. I I I don't know why there is such a drive of that there is a need to, for people to actually alter their most important organ with the ink. There is an initiative by FDA, and somebody can Google it up. Think before you ink. I think it's a great slogan, very well put together. And they do provide a number of reasons of what people should consider before going and getting a permanent tattoo. And I'll give you just a few of them just to start thinking. First of all, it's permanent. You get your tattoo, you get it for life. Yes, you can remove it in the future, but not every ink is easy to remove. Many removal
Does it
procedures,
leave scars?
of course they do. Majority of tattoos when they are removed, despite of how excellent dermatologists are, they could leave a scar, and different ink types can lead to different scars. People get allergic reaction to tattoo ink, especially to the red, green, yellow, and blue dyes. People can get allergic reaction, and what's worse, it may be years after. It may not be immediate when person got that tattoo, but later on, people can get a skin infection. And yes, one would argue that those parlors should have aseptic procedures and should run clean business. Of course they should. And nobody by choice would bring infection. But if you do any type of alteration and you come into your skin, you always have a risk. There are other skin problems could appear. People can develop granulomas. It's like a bumps on the skin as a reaction to this ink. People can develop scars and scarring tissues all the way to keloid scars, those big, big scars, which are very difficult to treat. They can be triggered by tattoo. Another thing to consider, blood-borne diseases. People can get diseases like, for example, hepatitis B or hepatitis C through a tattoo application. Again, the providers should be doing clean services, and I'm sure majority of them do. But do you want to be that 1% or 0.5% to get a condition like this? And last but not least, another thing which nobody even thinks about, as we age and as we progress, sometimes things happen, we need an MRI. Well, patient with the tattoo can get an MRI burn because some of the tattoo inks can act in an MRI machine and cause a
That
burn.
metallic.
Yeah, it's very rare, it's not very common, but it's possible. Majority of burns are mild, but they could be pretty serious as well. So I think those are the things to think about. And the funny thing I tell to my kids, and I always speak to their friends and everybody else. Again, I advocate against tattoos. I always tell them, remember, when people get a tattoo when they're 18 or 20 or even 25 on a firm skin, it may look nice. Do you really need it or not? It's a separate discussion. But think about fast forward 30 years, fast forward 40 years. And by the way, it was projected that the generation of current teens, they're going to live over 100 years old on average. If they do healthy lifestyle choices, eat healthy, exercise, and everything, with the current life expectancy curve, they're going to live over 100 years. Well, come 60, come 70 with a wrinkly skin, that same rose doesn't look that rosy anymore. And that same image of whatever they chose to tattoo on their body doesn't look that glorious anymore. So it's just something which you should think about. Why would you alter your skin, your most important organ, with a tattoo? I would not recommend.
Right. That kind of opens a whole can of worms on its own because people like to have a self-expression. But I happen to agree with you. I think it is short-sighted. Ultimately, opinions change, and then that's something, a permanent mark that cannot be easily removed. And and it's also, on top of things, it's dangerous as well. Um,
Yes.
but with advancement, you touched upon a very interesting topic that we are all going to live over 100. I actually saw an article. I don't know if you've heard this before, that uh, one article said anybody under 40 will live to 1,000. I think it was from a professor in UCI. I don't remember exactly, but it seems like the innovation in technology and in also pharmaceutical treatments is progressing so rapidly, especially with onset of AI, that it does seem fathomable that we will have a generation that does live to 1,000 years old. Almost, almost seems to me like we're going back to biblical times when Adam and Eve lived almost 1,000 years old. Maybe our human bodies are capable of that age with the right technology behind us. Perhaps we had something before that we're rediscovering again. What is your, I'd say, number one thing that you see that's advancing medicine today?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think I don't know about 1,000 years. I would love that. That would be wonderful as long as we are healthy. And I think 100 years old is probably much more realistic kind of target. And I think in general, a huge advancement which have taken place over probably last 100 years, as you very well known, is our ability to treat infections. People used to die from tuberculosis. People used to die from chicken pox and, different types of pox, pretty much different types of infections. Over last 100 years, plus minus, pretty much every infectious disease is treatable, and many of them have been eradicated. Plus vaccines and prevention. Many, diseases are being vaccinated at birth. They're being vaccinated through the first year of life. So we've eliminated a number of diseases which used to be epidemics and used to kill a lot of people at the same time. We're luckily past that. So I think that partially would contribute to our ability to live longer and live healthier lives. I think the more we as a society make healthy lifestyle choices, eat healthy, exercise, fight our very sedentary lifestyle. Unfortunately, majority of us work sitting at the computer, sitting at the desk, some not even at the desk, and that's not good for us. It's not good for our spine. It's not good for our level of physical activity. And I think the more time we spend outdoors, the more we do physically active things, the healthier we're going to be, the longer we're going to live. Nutrition is a very big component of that, not only from weight management perspective, which is also important, but also from gut health. The healthier food we eat, the less genetically modified food we eat, the less fast food we eat, the more we promote healthy microbiome in our intestines, the more we absorb the good stuff and pass out the bad stuff. I think that's very important. So all of this, I guess, kind of contributes to why the projection is that this generation of, hopefully including us, but definitely our children, would live much longer. And it includes the available healthcare options. It includes those treatable options for a lot of cancers which are being cured in the tools current medicine has available, and majority of all other diseases. It's a good time to be alive. It's a good time to
Yeah.
raise a family. It's a good time to take care of our parents because we have so many resources and so many opportunities. And despite that we spoke about some of the possible areas of improvement and some of the challenges of the current healthcare system, I have to admit we're very fortunate to live in this amazing country, live in a country full of opportunities, full of resources to run our businesses, to advance whatever we're passionate about, to give our children an opportunity to learn, to grow, to become who they want to be, and innovate and drive the progress in the area they choose. I really believe that the future is bright looking at my kids, and I'm
I do
sure
too.
your kids will be the same.
Yeah.
And that's what inspires me to do my little bit and help the companies in healthcare field be successful, bring new treatments, invest more money into development of even newer treatment options, and give people what they ultimately need. Everybody wants to live long if they're healthy.
And
Nobody
also
wants
look younger.
look younger too. We can talk about that as well.
Let me actually ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Is so there's an interesting story that I've read, biblical story that Abraham, forefather to many nations, he did not age. Basically, up until his generation, people did not age, and because his son Isaac, he was a carbon copy of him. It's just like a story that I read that he looked so much alike that they didn't know who was the father, who's the son, who to honor. So supposedly he prayed to God to make a distinction between him and his son, and that's when God introduced aging into the world. So it seems like, according to that story, up until that point, aging wasn't an issue. Is that a possibility to kind of reverse aging, and with the onset of advanced technology and um, like basically unlocking the genome, is there a way to have skin kind of rejuvenate itself and reverse aging altogether? What's on the forefront of this?
It's a very interesting story that you brought up. And I have to say, even though I am a realist and I am a scientist, I do believe that everything is possible to a certain extent. So theoretically, many things are possible. But I wanted to share with you some thoughts. When we speak about aging, it's not only the skin. Yes, skin is something which really jumps to our attention. Yes, we do develop wrinkles, but it's not only the quality of the skin, the wrinkles per se, which make a person look older. It's also the quality of underlying tissues. With the aging, we do lose bone. So the bone structure, in our face and the rest of the body, by the way, we lose the bone structure a little bit. We do lose the fat pads. Like if you look at a young child from above, you will see those bumpy cheeks sticking out. As you look at the teenager and then a 20-year-old and a 30, 40, 50, 70-year-old, you will see those fat pads kind of coming down a little bit and changing the shape of the face. So it's not just the skin quality which needs to be looking different to prevent the aging. It's treating the patient as a whole. And that's what a lot of dermatologists do an excellent job, because they do certain procedures to improve skin quality while doing certain other injectable and other treatments to rebuild the facial structures and underlying structures to give more useful appearance to the face. But I want to put another provocative thought to our discussion today. I think we should look more and more at aging as a privilege. And I will explain what I mean by that. Aging is not only how we look, it's our overall maturity. It's becoming from a baby to a teenager, sometimes making maybe not such a good choices. We all hope they would make good choices, but sometimes they don't. To a maturity stage where, there are debates that women mature earlier than men. Some men never mature, but that's a whole topic for the other discussion. But we are maturing with age. We're becoming more valuable members of the society. We are privileged to be older, to become older. And, unfortunately, not everybody makes it to their 40s or 50s or 60s and 70s. Kids die from cancer sometimes. So I think one of the things in a mindset is important to remember: how can we age gracefully versus not age at all? And that's what I'm
Right.
trying to think. I'm in my mid 50s personally, and I do like to take care of my skin. I do like to preserve usefulness to whatever extent I can. But I also do accept that, yes, I'm not 25 anymore. It's okay. Because I'm not 25 anymore, I know something which a 25-year-old currently doesn't know. They will. They will probably be way smarter than me when they're going to become 55. But as of today, I carry that life experience, which they don't. And it would be much better than people walking into my office looking at me would have an understanding. Yes, this person have a little bit of a life experience. I probably don't have enough, as much as my grandfather did when he was 97, but I do have my share. And I think one way of looking at aging is looking at it as we progress through this amazing life journey, which we were gifted, and taking the best out of every single day.
I think that's a very strong message. It kind of explains, based on that story that I just shared, why Avram even asked for aging in the first place, because there's a profound, I think, beauty in maturity, in aging, and um, yeah, it's like fine wine is better aged. As long as person actually uses his time wisely, and he can bring benefit from his maturity and experience rather than just look old and become useless. Yeah, there's time and place. I think in general, for example, retirement, I personally don't want to retire ever. I want to work as much as I possibly can. Um, and it's also a bigger picture, being happy with what you have in life, accepting change, accepting that things will become different, not necessarily bad. And I think you touched on the topic as well when it comes to tattoos. Being happy in your skin, I think it's such a big understatement. People don't realize how important that is. Uh, Happiness levels in life will be much greater if people just accept who they are and not follow a way to drastically change their look or uh, find find flaws in their background. And there's a lot of victim mentality in today's society. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, I'm this, I'm that, but I think there's just beauty in every human being and in every state of life. If people are take pride and joy in their current situation, they can improve their life far beyond what medicine can do, far beyond what anything in the world can do. But ultimately, we do have to progress in the world and society, and um, I, I'm really glad that there are people like you that help for the health industry advance. And we, for example, just getting into this field, we had a few customers that approached us to help brand some medications. I have them on my desk. We're still thinking about working with this, and potentially we'll get you involved on things that can change people's lives, like breast self-exam, colon disease test, other medications and treatments that offer solutions. Also, even hospitals, how to improve the communication for hospitals, even save them money so the healthcare industry can be more affordable and more accessible. I know there's so many more topics we can cover. We can talk for hours. I would love to have you back at another podcast. Like I have so many built up questions about, for example, hair loss. I would imagine you as a dermatologist know a lot about that. Very hot topic. Botox, weight loss. There are like some pills. So I really hope that our audience subscribe, comment questions for next episode. I'd love to have you back again, and we can do this one more time. Get into more controversial topics. Try to find truth. There's, I think, no harm in talking about controversial topics as long as you're open minded and seeking the truth rather just proving a point. So,
Thank I would love to be back. Would love to address the questions which can come up. It was very inspiring conversation for me as well. You brought up a lot of interesting points and provoke a lot of thoughts. So I'm gonna keep thinking of how we can do things better. How can we serve our patients and people better? And definitely would love opportunity to chat again.
before we end the podcast, how can companies find you to employ you for your services?
So the best way to reach me would be via email. And I don't know, Dmitry, if you have a capacity to put it on a podcast, like my contact information, that would be
Absolutely.
Dr. Borinshteyn at yahoo.com. I do have a
Absolutely.
website which actually I need help to activate. It has been built a long time ago and we never launched it. So that's something to do. But we were so busy serving clients that we deprioritized our own website. So that would be something absolutely I need to maybe put on my list, my to-do list.
We can certainly help you with that too.
Oh, thank you. That would be
That's what
great.
we do.
That would be great. But the drborinshteyn at yahoo.com would be a great email. And I did say in it earlier that I'm not going to give medical advice, which I will not. But I want to leave the audience with just two thoughts because I do know, just like the hair loss and like all other questions you brought up are very important. I think acne bothers a lot of people. And I want to give two very, very simple advice for anybody who has any concerns about acne, whether for them or their children, teenagers. One is change your pillowcase often. And by often, I mean if you have acne problem, wash it, iron it twice a week at least. You can do it every other day because whatever is on your face gets on a pillowcase, gets back on your face. And the second one, rule which is very hard to abide even for me when I know it, don't touch your face ever because you have a lot of stuff on your hands.
I'm guilty
All,
of that.
but we all do that. We all do this and we all do this and we do this. Don't. Your acne and your appearance of your skin is going to be so, so, so much better with those two super little easy things to do.
Oh, that's very valuable advice. I never even thought about that. And I think that every single person on this planet can benefit from. So, again, thank you very much for coming on. I would love to have you back, and we'll touch on those topics one more time in greater detail. And if anybody has any other questions or topics for us to cover, please leave comments, and we'll try to get back to you. And again, subscribe, follow for more. And until the next episode, have a wonderful day and see you on the next episode. Goodbye. Thank you, Natalia.